The first topic I want to talk about is the requirement of a man in the zivug. And this is a deep concept that halacha, as always, the point of halacha is to enhance the yichud, to make it the most refined and the most successful yichud there possibly could be. And as we can see in the world, the tendency or the teva of a man can be to, as the Gemara describes in Psachim, as a lion that comes ferociously, takes his prey, eats it, and leaves. In other words, there's a like we see in the world, there can be a very selfish situation. A man coming, I want a woman, a very deep desire, I'll take her, and then I will leave. So the first thing Hashem told us is when you get married, if you look at halacha, you'll understand a lot of midos. So the first thing Hashem said is, when you get married and you are kona this woman, you do a kiddushin and she's your wife and she's usher to the whole world, you can't touch her because you didn't give her a ksuba yet. After you give her a ksuba, then you can start having an intimate experience. And the same pattern you see in halacha is that the entire foundation of the marriage only exists after there is all of the kiyum of the ksuba. After you have a ksuba, then you can have a marriage. If you don't have a ksuba, then it's grounds for divorce. So what that teaches us is that the intimate experience of yichud, of zivug, happens in many, many levels. And after all these levels are in place, then you can have the apex, which is the zivug itself. And also teaches you that it's the man's responsibility to be in the leadership role of creating this experience, and the woman reacts to that experience. And the degree of the marriage, the success in the marriage, whatever you put in, that's what you get out. Whatever the man puts in, that's what a woman will react with. So we see this in this. I would basically say there's 4 levels of intimacy, right? The first level of intimacy is what you could describe what happens in engagement, or the married version of that is nida, right? Where you're friends and you have fun together and you do stuff together and there's a flowing, loving relationship. And in that, there's also a role that he has of being caring and loving and being responsible and making her safe and being protective and making sure that she has her basic needs. That's the first level of ksuba, right? There's food, there's clothing, there's protection. So that is the ambiance, that is the foundation of building up towards a intimate experience. And you know what, I skipped a step and I wanted to say out, the modern day expression of the messed up version of the male tendency is very preeminent in the frum world, which is basically the way it's described. And you have to know this is what women are being taught, is that your man has needs, and not only does he have needs, we can make it religiously very guilty and say, like, if you don't give him his needs, who knows what's going to happen? All kinds of terrible, terrible things. And therefore, it's your responsibility to make sure that he is satisfied. And that's the way they're taught. And it is clearly the same midos as the male-dominant selfish world, and is clearly what Hashem is trying to teach us not to do in the Torah, right? So Hashem is telling us, if you want to have this, you say you have needs, you have a desire, you need a woman, fine. In order to get that need satisfied, which is the deepest need in the world, you have to build the foundation that creates that yichud in a proper way. And it's your responsibility to do it. It's your responsibility to do it the first time, and it's your responsibility to continuously do it. So as Chazal speak about when they talk about zivug, they talk about a word called pius, and they're very, very mikatzer. They're very don't spend a lot of time talking about it because it's basic midos. But the gist of it is that it's the man's responsibility to direct the zivug towards the yichud, towards zivug from way before they actually are in the bedroom, to build up from, let's say, the basic level of intimacy, which is like I described before, which is even shaykh and nida, which is even shaykh and engagement, to a level of intimacy which is a next level and the next level and the next level. So if you would say the other type of intimacy would be something which you could even look at on a conceptual level, could exist between a father and a daughter, or a brother and a sister, where there's love, there's even physical affection, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a sexual experience, right? Hugs, kisses that you can that show connection and loving and touch. It's beyond just the experience of we're friends, right? There's an intimate touch going on, but it's still not on the level of building up towards necessarily a zivug. It's a man's responsibility to make sure that happens, and it's a man's responsibility to make sure to know how to flow from that to a more expressive sexual experience. And a lot of guys are not taught this, and therefore a lot of women are taught to basically not be built up and think that there's something okay with that because I have to satisfy the man's need. The way a woman's body and psyche is built is exactly in tune with Ksuba. And if you think about both of these things, the way Hashem set it up, it's not an accident. And I always tell this to the guys. If you go with the process that Hashem put into the Bria, which means the Ksuba, and a way a woman's psychological, physical body is created, you will actually create something which is a very deep, incredible yichud. Whereas if you would go the natural way, or the unrefined way, the yichud that you create will be missing almost all of the essence in it. So that the man's responsibility is to bring her from a place of, I would say, even the physical touch where it's not so sexual, to move it up, to build it to a more sensual touch, and eventually to create a situation where she has, as the Torah calls it, onasa. Onasa means it's the time she looks forward to. It's a time of pleasure. It's a time of enjoyment. And that means that it's incorrect for a man to want to give his wife zera until she is in a place of her beautiful experience, which obviously is expressed in bringing a woman to climax. But it's not just the climax, it's all of the steps that go into creating that situation. All of that is what the ksuba means. In order to create a zivug, in order to have her, bring her to a place that she can receive you. Bring her to a place where now she's in that same space of desire you are. And when you do that, then you can have her. Otherwise, you haven't deserved her yet. You can't have her at that point. Is there any questions of what I said so far?
Yeah, I think it's really powerful, but like to be the kalah teacher slash even wife, like I don't know how you even start giving that over to your husband slash giving it over to kalahs to give over to their chatan if they're not learning with you. If I understand that, kodem kol, to understand for yourself as a woman that you're not just supposed to perform instantaneously is a number one, but how more do you build on that and give that over?
So there are two ways that a man learns about intimacy. The principal way is he learns from his wife. Like it says, Adam yada eschava ishto. In other words, no one knows the other gender until they're taught. So when a woman puts out her needs and say, I need this, this feels good to me, this doesn't feel good to me. In a healthy relationship, that should be enough that he should be able to learn, oh, okay, this is my responsibility. Because we sort of think, I think psychologically, like, I need this, but maybe I don't really deserve this, or maybe I'm just weird. Or if a woman and a man is built a certain way, that's their need, that already is a siman that's holy and good and supposed to be that way. And so the main lesson we have to give the women, and the women have to give their husbands, and the husbands have to be taught, is that when she's expressing something, that is the ksuba. That requires you. Now deal with that. Now figure out how to make that into your yichud because it's supposed to be there. Does that answer your question, Devara?
Yeah, it does. You had said there's two ways. Is that
Okay.
the first way is
The second
learning
way
from
is
the
the second way is, and this is very important as a wife and as a kalah teacher, is that you can't replace experience. Which means even if I hear from a woman something, let's say I hear from my wife something, I need to interpret it from within a man's psyche, a man's body, a man's fears, 100 things that there. And therefore, the reason why we have chassan classes, or the reason why, which should be, is that um, men have fathers, right? And if there's no fathers, rabbeim, is that you need to be in the experience of learning, okay, this is her need. How do I do that? Right? Because even if a woman expresses something very clearly, in order for him to translate that in a practical sense, oftentimes he needs another guy to say, no, no, it works like this. One second, I hear a question over here. How is it helpful for a kalah to know that the responsibility is fully on him and not her, and that's not much she can do if he's not taught about her responsibility? Okay, so first of all, I don't think the responsibility is only on him, because obviously, I think it's clear that you can decide if you want to receive something or not receive something. You can decide if you want to participate or not participate, right? But the leadership role, he needs to start, and then afterwards she needs to participate. So the reason why it's important to teach kalas this is because a kala is supposed to say, and it's correct to say, I love you, I want you, but I can't go unless you give me these things. Unless you produce, unless you are able to build me up, unless you're able to give me the caring, unless you're able to give her the whole reka, the whole environment of the relationship, I'm not going to be able to do this. And that's okay. That's correct. Like I just had a situation where a guy was going to the mikvah and his wife didn't want to go. And he's calling me up and she said to him, go to your chassan teacher. He can teach you how to build a woman up. And why did she have the strength in her to say that? Because her kalah teacher told her that. So I think there is a very important thing to teach kalahs, what they're supposed to have, what the man is required to do, what he's capable of doing. And then if he doesn't do it, she can give her as much of her needs over as she can. And if he still got stuck, say it's totally normal. Every man needs to be no one is born with knowledge of how to be an amazing lover. It's totally fine. I love you. Go figure it out. Go speak to somebody. I'm sure they'll help you. Okay, are we good, Devora?
Sorry. Yeah, just the last point. I think you maybe got cut off, but you were saying the second one is based off of experience, but then also learning from like a Rav or a father on how to actually
Practically.
translate that.
Yeah, practically speaking. Technique. It's more than technique. It's not just an action. There's all kinds of fears and emotions and be able to read signs and understand, what does this mean, and all these things that
Right.
not necessarily could a woman even give it over to you because she doesn't understand where you're holding. She understands herself, but she doesn't understand how you interpret what she is expressing. So it's extremely important first that the woman is able to express all of her needs, and a lot can be accomplished by that. Sometimes you can have a guy who's intuitive and he understands and he grows. Sometimes you can get to a place of a block, and it's like she said it 100 times and he doesn't know what to do. I've had that experience many times, and then it should be like, listen, I love you, I want you. It's not a problem. You can learn this. Go to somebody who's good at it, and he'll teach you. Like anything.
Thank you.
I just want to say one more thing, and we have to go on. The main complaint that there is in marriage is that the woman doesn't want. Okay, in the firm world that I've been teaching for a while, if you look at Chazal, it's extremely fascinating how they built it completely opposite, which is the assumption is that a woman is always looking for connection with her husband, and your responsibility is not to be cruel and to make sure that she gets what she needs. So the assumption is she always wants, which means that if we have a situation where where a woman is like, I don't want, there's something weird about that. And the reason is the way I understand it, is of course she wants, she's feeling the pain, but she doesn't feel like she can get what she needs, so she gives up, right? So that's also the responsibility of Iksuv. If a guy's coming to my wife doesn't want, and saying, well, the first thing I say to you, okay, well, what are you not doing? Let's hear about your build up. Let's hear about what you're giving to her. Let's hear about the whole foundation of the marriage, and then we'll see if she isn't wanting. So if you have a kalah who's like saying, "Listen, I don't feel like being together." So the first question, there are other issues also that a woman can have on her own. But the first question is, okay, well, do you feel safe with your husband? Do you feel like he cares about you? Do you feel like he's attentive to your needs? Is he building you up? That's question number one. And you have to empower the women to know that they're supposed to get those needs in order to be able to get the success of a zivug.